experience, I have forayed into television, video games, and comic books. Most of the projects I've been associated with have earned or won Eisners, Emmys, or Peabody Awards. But they all have one thing in common. They allow people like us to feel seen and heard. It's funny, when I was a kid growing up, I loved Lord of the Rings. I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I loved Star Wars. I still do it. I loved Batman. I loved watching them. I loved reading them growing up. But I never saw myself on screen with them. I never even imagined I could be on screen with them. I never imagined that I could be there, or someone like me of my color could be there with Batman, or as Batman. Same with the other media. I never could have imagined it. It just never occurred to me that a brown person could be on TV, could be depicted in books as the hero or the heroine of their story. Because it just wasn't there, and it never occurred to me. I just saw these people and I rolled with it. Years went on, and then I finally started to see people like me on television, in comic books, in video games. And it wasn't great. You know, we were vilified, we were troped with one word: terrorists, bad guys. We were targets, just there to cause terror. And when we weren't, we were being saved by a white person. They defined our arcs. They defined our journeys. And when I saw that, it didn't sit right with me, because that's not who we are. That wasn't us on screen, because it wasn't us talking about our journey. There was someone else, someone white, talking about a brown person's journey, and it just didn't feel right. We were a trope. And you know, I wanted so badly to see someone out there who, you know, loved fan fiction, who liked rock music, who would giggle every time she would do something silly, you know, who had anxiety, who had depression. I wanted to see all these personalities on screen depicted by a brown person, but what did I get? I got this one-dimensional person who was either one extreme or the other. There was no balance. And that is what diversity is. It is allowing people of color to tell their stories and allow their stories to be resonated and to resonate with people of their own color, of their own culture. And we have such a rich culture, so much to tell. But it has been told for a very, very long time. And when it hasn't been great. And it all starts in the writer's room, when you allow people of color to come in and tell their stories. Not when it's a predominantly white room. I remember when Kamala was announced, she was met with a lot of backlash, surprisingly from Pakistanis themselves. And I remember going through all these forums, I remember talking to people, and I remember how angry they were. They didn't want her. They kept commenting, "We don't want her. Why is this happening? No, we don't want this." And I understood why. I didn't blame them, because at the back of their minds, they just thought she was just going to be a cookie-cutter brown person just for the sake of it. So I didn't say anything. I supported their anger. I supported the backlash, because I know how it feels when you see someone there who isn't representative of who you are. But then, of course, that changed after they read her story, after her story actually came out. She resonated with so many, not just Pakistanis though, that's the funny part. She resonated with people, immigrants, even white people resonated with her story, because she was real. She was drawn from real stories, real anecdotes. She was the product of a diverse writing team, people from Pakistan, from America who were born in Pakistan, from Egyptians, from Mexicans. Everybody came and became Kamala. Now, Kamala is not just one person, Kamala was many people trying their best to depict someone who was Pakistani, yes, but human first. Muslim, yes, but human first. She had these beautiful Pakistani attributes, she had these beautiful Muslim roots in her, but she was human. She had her flaws, she had her personality quirks, she had family that resonated with Pakistanis here that went, oh wait a second, she looks like us. Her family acts like us, the way they eat like us. It wasn't big things, it was the small things that resonated with people. I remember this girl once came up to me and said, oh, you know that dupatta that Kamala was wearing? I have the same dupatta, and when I saw that dupatta, I just thought, oh, me and Kamala, we're so similar. And it's just the little things that you do that make a difference. It's all about normalizing the brown experience. It's all about normalizing Pakistani culture, Desi culture. Because we're not used to seeing Desi culture on the screen in the mainstream media. When we are, it's not accurate, plain and simple. You know, it's half-baked. And so, in my future projects, I decided to take it one step further. With Destruction All-Stars, the latest game that I helped write, we decided to cast and create a Pathan character. A character from Peshawar who spoke Pashto. Having written some lines, having heard those lines now after the game has been launched, I think it's beyond words how it felt to me as a Pathan, but just for the Pathan and Pashtun culture as a whole, because they're the ones who've been vilified in this whole thing, because they have been linked the most to terrorist cells. And they have been mistreated, misrepresented. They've had insults thrown at them as a race, as a culture. And just having a character that spoke lines in mainstream media on such a big platform, on a platform available to the whole world. I've had messages come in of people from Peshawar, people living abroad but who are from Peshawar saying, hey, wait a minute, he's a Pathan. I just heard him speak Pashto and for a second I didn't realize that was Pashto because I am not used to hearing it on TV in a light-hearted manner. This is a guy who is a father. He talks about his kids. He makes dad jokes. He makes puns. He talks about baking. I remember we gave this character to a sensitivity reader because we were afraid of the backlash we might face with this. And I remember she wrote back and she said she was in tears because she had never ever seen this happen. She said, in my mind, I always associated myself with violence, with guns, with bombs. And now I'm seeing this wholesome father on screen. I can play as this wholesome father who is cracking dad jokes, who is saying Raza Chizu on screen. And she said to us that this is the best gift I have ever been given. And that stuck with me. And it's not just characters like Sergeant Rescue from Destruction All-Stars. We have so many diverse characters in there. Again, just a byproduct of such a diverse writer's room. And we've had such amazing reception from the Black community, the Latinx community, the Muslim community as a whole, the MENA community. These are characters that have been crafted with care, with love, with the intention to represent. And again, it's not hard. I keep hearing that representation is hard, diversity is hard, it's hard to do. No, it's not. Now when you take the time, the effort to research, to talk to people, all I had to do was talk talk to a few people, learn their stories, absorb their stories, tell their stories through them. It's not hard. The internet has made everything so easy. And I encourage writers and creators everywhere. You have to allow your audience to feel seen, to feel heard. Because when you do, that's when the real change happens. And I'll tell you how. With characters like Burqa Avenger, kids didn't have a superhero here in Pakistan to look up to. They didn't have kids associated with that superhero. And when we were creating her, and when we were creating her stories, we decided to tackle some pretty hard-hitting subjects that would be considered taboo in Pakistan. Stuff like accepting people for who they are, regardless of their ethnicity. Stuff like sectarian violence, which at the time, and even now, is not an easy subject to teach or to bring to light. And we did it through Burqa Avenger. We told the story of how sectarian violence occurs in Pakistan and how we should accept people and love people for who they are, regardless, because they're humans. And I remember so many kids loved that episode. So many kids related to that episode. So many kids wrote in letters demanding that they have been successfully taught by Burqa Avenger, because Burqa Avenger told them to change their ways, and like, yes, we are. And that was a stepping point for everybody. And that is a stepping point for a writer. When you bring about real change, or you just imbue a lesson and allow people to absorb that lesson. The funny thing is, it's really easy to fall into your own trap when writing diverse characters. I remember when I was writing for Destruction All-Stars, I pulled back. I was so hesitant to show my characters for who they were, because I was afraid of what people would say. I remember our producer came up to me and she said, I feel like you were restraining yourself while writing. Is it out of fear? She was Irish. She is Irish. And I remember I said, yes, I am. And she said, it shows in the dialogues. They feel like they're being pulled back, because it was just years and years of me afraid of seeing a brown person on screen. And I wanted to do right by this character. And it was the same with Kamala, with all these characters, I was just, there is a sense of fear of what will they say. And because of that, you tend to pull back. But I would encourage everybody to not pull back, give it your 100%. If it's real, if those characters feel real, if they feel like you, they're going to be loved. I assure you. This is not about checking boxes on a diversity checklist. It's not about just creating a character and pushing them out into the world. No. It's about believing and loving them like they were your own. Believing and loving them like they were your neighbor or your best friend. And that is what will resonate with the audience. Otherwise, you're going to Google search Middle Eastern video game characters, and the only character you're going to come up with, or a Muslim video game character, and the only result you're going to come up with is genie. So yeah, diversity is important. It is not a checkbox. It is feeling seen, feeling heard. And that is where the change happens.